Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Beer Rep Chats With. Today I'm joined by Andy Parker, founder and head brewer of Elusive Brewing. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Martin. Cheers.
So we're going to kick things off with your brewing journey and how did you go from being in a job in IT to founding Elusive Brewing?
Yeah, good question. I worked in IT for many years, and before that was in electronic engineering as an apprentice, which turned out to be a good skill to have as a brewer. But I started out, it just started out as a hobby, and it's one that I really enjoyed as a bit of a kind of mental break at the weekend from IT and having a different, something different to focus on to take my mind off the work. And it's a hobby I just really got into, enjoyed the club, London Amateur Brewers, and it kind of just lit a fire under me in terms of my passion for beer and brewing. And then eventually entered some competitions, and one competition was the National Homebrewing Awards that the Craft Beer Co won, and the prize was to brew commercially with Dark Star and have a kind of commercial release, and £5,000. That money became the deposit on the kit that we still brew on today.
That's brilliant. Do they still do sort of competitions like that?
They did, yeah. I mean, that's pretty. They ran that same competition the year after, and a guy called Gareth won it, who went on to start Epochal Brewing up in Glasgow.
Oh, awesome.
So, the two winners both started breweries, which is quite cool.
I'm a member myself of London Amateur Brewers. Do you want to tell people a bit more about London Amateur Brewers?
Yeah, I mean, it's London's longest running homebrew club, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure it is. Been going for a long time now, and I was a member back in, sort of 2010 to 2012, maybe a bit after that. We eventually started in 2016. Yeah, so I joined in around about 2012 and was a member till 2015, 16. But it's got a club with a great pedigree in terms of it's certainly helped create quite a few commercial breweries. I think most famously the Colonel, when Evan was a member. A club that's very supportive, has been very progressive as a club, and has always been very honest with feedback and likes to kind of nurture, but not tell everyone that everything's wonderful. Just be quite honest with each other and actually help each other improve in terms of.
Yes, it's really good, isn't it? So it's interesting to obviously taste people's beers and experiment and obviously get feedback on your own, regardless if it's a great beer or not so great beer. It's good fun. It's
good fun, yeah, definitely.
From homebrewer to running a full-scale breweries, it's like a big leap and quite daunting, I would imagine, for anyone thinking of, I've had a great few home brews, I've won a few competitions, but how do you take that extra leap and what's involved in that next step?
I think the biggest challenge is learning how to run a business. If you're going to start your own brewery rather than join another brewery as a commercial brewer, which is probably a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But the biggest learning curve for me was around running a business because the brewing side, scaling things up. I had lots of support with that and, making sure the beers were good. But running a business well and being commercially savvy and operating in what's a very busy market is what's key if you're going to be successful as a commercial brewery.
Yeah, it's definitely a very busy market. I mean, what kind of support and what did you look for when you was thinking about upgrading to opening your own?
I had the kind of privilege of knowing the guys at Weird Beard who helped me along the journey, as it were, and helped release some commercial beers for us too. And Greg in particular was very open with the business side of things and showing how he'd costed things and how he had kind of planned for their business and what they did to get up and running. So being able to lean on someone that had been through it was really helpful. And likewise lean on Brian a bit for the brewing side as well. For example, learning how to wash a cask or stuff that as a home brewer you don't do. So those little, technical processes you need to be aware of, cleaning tanks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, cleaning place.
Yeah, really, on both sides. I had a lot of help from Weird Beard, and I do count them still as a brewery that was a big part of our journey.
So obviously, Elusive Brewing, very unique brand with your retro theme. How did all that theme come about?
So the branding's all 8-bit gaming, and the Elusive was my gamer tag back in when I first got an Xbox, whenever that was.
Was it a 360? I had a 360.
Yeah, the 360. And it just came from there. So, I mean, a friend of mine, when I did my first commercial release with Weird Beard as a collab, a friend of mine, Kerry, helped with the branding and designed the logo. I already had kind of the name, wanted to be elusive. And he was like, where did that come from? I said, well, it's all retro gaming. And he came up with his Pixel brand, which was worked really well for us. And he did the initial branding for Level Up and Lord Nelson, which was the beer we released with Weirdbeard. A kind of hand-drawn 8-bit pixel artwork that is kind of, we still stick with that today. And have a lot of fun with referencing old video games or
it's brilliant.
Or just general pixel artwork. So we use some cityscapes or futuristic scenes, or just a lot of fun with pixel art. But it's all born out of a love of 8-bit gaming from the 80s.
So you've also written and released a book, The Modern Homebrewer. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what inspired you to write it, and what can readers expect from that?
Yeah, sure. So that was published by Camera, and Camera approached me about 2 years ago now, having written a previous book for them, the Essential Homebrewing book, which was like a pocket guide, which took some previous work from Graham Wheeler and kind of modernized it and added some new bits in. So they wanted to bring a new landmark title for their homebrewing portfolio, basically, that kind of took a completely fresh look at homebrewing compared to that old book, which was based on some text that was quite dated, although I did my best to modernize it. So start from scratch, write about what homebrewers that brew today want to know about, help them get better, and also bring in some kind of more recipes. So we took the approach of, so that book was commissioned May 2 years ago, and then we had like a year to write it, so finish it in May of last year, and it got published in September of last year. I kind of did the initial framework for the book. I realized it was a hell of a lot of work, so I approached Jamil Zainasheff, who I'd met a couple of times, and he's obviously a very well regarded author and kind of member of the homebrewing scene, and with his brewery at Heretic. And it just so happened that he sold his brewery during lockdown and was kind of, take some time out a little bit, and it fitted well for him as well. So he joined, and we kind of decided to co-author the book, and it went from there. And I think that it worked well in terms of marking each other's homework and encouraging each other along. And I think the book we've written is something that we're both very proud of, and one that homebrewers are giving some great feedback on as well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, obviously, there's so many advances in home brewing these days that a new book like yours that you just released is probably much needed and appreciated in the home brewing community, especially now. There's techniques where you can even cold crash beers indoors and pressure ferment and all that stuff. It's amazing what you can do from home.
Yeah, I mean, it still blows my mind when I look at the malt miller and see all this kit. We just bought a little 60-litre uni tank for our pilot kit, and it's probably a better spec than our main FDs. It's insane. Yeah, it's cool. And homebrewers these days have got access to top class commercial quality equivalent kit. There's no excuse to make bad beer, but you can make good beer in a plastic bucket. I do maintain that, and I did do that as a homebrewer. It's about getting your process right and your hygiene right. These toys are nice, but you don't need these toys to get involved. It's got a very low barrier to entry in homebrewing, and we do talk about that in the book as well.
Awesome. So obviously, for someone getting into home brewing, how does your book help them understand the process a bit more? If it's the first time.
I see the book as, and we positioned it when we pitched it as more intermediate. It's not really, we do cover some of the bases of the process, but it very much focuses on getting your head a bit more into it and how to improve, how to brew the best quality beer you can, the things you should be checking as a brewer when you're brewing. So it does walk through the process, but there's a big focus on quality and measurements and all that kind of stuff. So not just brewing beer, but brewing good quality beer was the focus.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about some of your beers that we'll be releasing on our store. And we're going to firstly start with Level Up, which was your first beer, I believe.
Yes.
That you brewed. So yeah, how did it evolve from its early days, from your first recipe, which won you the homebrew competition?
Yeah, so that Level Up was the one that won that competition I talked about. It was the 5% American Red, super red color grist that was kind of borrowed from Thornbridge. Their Colorado Red. Dominic Driscoll, the production brewer at Thornbridge, did a talk at a homebrew meetup and talked about this grist and how they constructed it. And I was able to adapt that. And then that was an English hop beer.
Their base recipe and kind of evolved.
Exactly. So we went with Citra and Simcoe originally. And when we launched it commercially, one thing I did was reduce the ABV down to 5. It was 5.8, and I wanted it in cask and keg. So I reduced it down to 5 to make it a bit more viable in cask. And that was the only tweak, really. But I will say that the reason we called it Level Up, obviously because leveling up and becoming a professional brewer, but then we started having different levels, and that was so level 1 was Citra and Simcoe, which was the original hop combo. But back then in 2016, I just couldn't get Citra and Simcoe as a new brewery. I managed to blag a little bit from some commercial brewing friends that had some surplus, but we just couldn't contract those varieties. So what we did was level 2 became a different hop, level 3, and I just used various hops as I went through it. There were some great combos. There were some that weren't so good as well, but we have now we're at level 33. I've kind of settled on what I like, and it's a Centennial Citra. There's a little bit of Simcoe, but I don't think we're going to change it anymore. So maybe we've reached the final level with Level Up, and we'll just keep brewing it as Level Up. It's in the final of the Champion Winter Beer Britain next week, which I'm really excited about. And if it wins that, then we don't want to be changing the recipe, right? So we'll keep it as is.
We got a winner. We'll stick to it.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so the next beer that we're going to talk about, which is also on the site, Enclave, and that's a collaboration with Bearwood Brewing, I believe. Quite a relatively new brewery on the scene. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, exactly. So they're not actually up and running yet. We're in Wokingham, or we're in Finchampstead, a little village outside Wokingham in Berkshire. Bearwood is setting up in Wokingham, and it's a spawn of a brew pub called the Outhouse, which is in Wokingham. It's a chap who owns that, a chap called Peter, has teamed up with a business partner to create a more of a production brewery in an industrial unit, as opposed to his little brew pub in the centre of town. And he's hired in some other local brewers to start that with him. So due to be up and running March, April time. So coming up in they've got the keys, the kit's on its way kind of thing. But friends of ours, all three of the guys involved in it are friends of ours, and they wanted to do a collab to get some beers out into the market with their name on. And I want to open their tap room before they've really got the kit up and running. Gives them something to pour. So they've been in a series of collabs and a little bit of cuckoo brewing, just to kind of get them going.
Brilliant. I mean, getting their name out there for them before they've actually really opened up as a commercial brewery. I mean, it's a great introduction to the scene. What do you enjoy about the most working with other brewers?
I mean, I love it's a good industry to work in that we're all kind of fighting the same fight in a way, and it still feels like that. We're trying to, carve out market share from the globals and try and brew the best beer we can. Try and be good businesses while we do that and support our communities. So that's the bit I enjoy the most, I think, for sure. And the bit that even 9 years in still has me bouncing out of bed in the morning and feeling like we're doing something good.
That's good. I mean, the passion's still there and the drive is still there to, create better recipes, work with like-minded brewers. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that as a full-time job. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Just to brew all day long. So we're going to talk about your other style of beer called Serenity, which is a dark mild. It's not really a style that many people are buying these days. You don't really see it often too much in shops and even in pubs. So what inspired you to brew a dark mild, and do you see like a revival of traditional beers like dark milds coming back?
Yeah, I think so. We've had a bit of success with brewing traditional styles alongside what we do in terms of the modern beer. And I love drinking. If I walk into a pub and there's 5 handballs in front of me with a bitter, a mild, a porter, whatever, I'm all over that. That's what I love to drink. So we've done a ruby mild, we've done a dark mild before, and we kind of have the idea that we'll brew maybe 1 or 2 a year, something that pays homage to that style. I'm a big Wolves fan. Yeah, and very, very famously recently, well published, was that Marston's Carlsberg have withdrawn Banks's mild, which is
it's a big shame. I mean, Banks's has been going around for years.
Yeah, for years, and Banks's mild is part of Wolverhampton's heritage in a way, and it was kind of a little homage to that. And the pump clip or the pump clip in the artwork on the can is a West Midlands canal, like a longboat floating down a canal in the West Midlands. So it's very much a nod to that beer, and it's 3.8% dark mild. We use some kind of crystal malts and specialty grains. It's not particularly roasty. It's got a kind of like a dark fruit profile to it. Very easy drinking, and hopefully your customers will really enjoy it.
It's good to go back to the roots and where all these styles came from originally. Another style, obviously, that is a bit under the radar these days is a Black IPA, and we're showcasing your Dark Forces beer on the site as well. So do you see a revival for Black IPAs? I mean, I love a Black IPA.
This is Black IPA is close to my heart. I think it's a style I love drinking. Back in when I was talked about 2012, and when I was joining London Brewers, really got into beer. There were loads of them around then, and I loved drinking them. I remember the Colonel had a great Black IPA, but it kind of went off a cliff. Because they just commercially, things come and go. But like Brute IPA was around for like 3 months before it went. Black IPA had a bit of a longer run, but then just became something that got superseded. Nobody wanted to drink it anymore. But there's still you found the odd Black IPA that survived. And when we started Elusive, I really wanted to brew a Black IPA, so we brewed a beer called Shadow of the Beast, which is one of our first 4 or 5 releases. Every year we've released 3 or 4 Black IPAs just to keep flying that flag of Black IPA. They can be a tough sell commercially, to be honest, but there are people like them. They really like them, so we'll keep flying that flag.
I think the Black IPA was the very first recipe I ever brewed from a kit from Malt Miller. Get a brewed. I got a kit from Get a Brewed, and it was a Black IPA, and I brewed it down at Mash Paddle Brewery.
See, the perfect Black IPA has got a little bit of roast. You want to be drinking. You want a dark beer. It's a dark beer. You don't want to paint something black. You want that nuance of roast, but not a full-on roasty porter stout vibe. More just a light roast. And for me, I really like that. The roast malt alongside the hops always gives for me like a dark fruit, like a blackcurrant vibe to it. And then you add the typically citrusy type IPA notes to it. It just works as a beer style for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a style that many people should definitely try. We're going to move on to, lots of challenges, independent breweries, lots of struggles. Probably since COVID, it's been a struggle for them since then. What's been the toughest part for Elusive during these troubled times?
I think it's still the biggest challenge for us is still market access. We're in Wokingham, which is a fairly vibrant market town. The town centre is always busy. And there's in the immediate town centre area is about 30 pubs. We can only actually sell into 3 of them, which is really poor. It's difficult. Yeah. But there's nowhere for local people to go to drink our beer, really. Reading's a bit better, thankfully, but our local market's still pretty much tied up and hard for us to access. So that's the biggest challenge for us, because we do want to be part of our local community and have people be able to drink our beer in their local pub. That's the biggest challenge for us. Other challenges around, well-documented costs have been spiraling with the energy crisis, drove up ingredient costs and energy costs. We're a very energy-intensive business, of course. So that's been a challenge to navigate in the past couple of years. But I feel like we're hopefully past the worst of that. And the main focus, again, is just to keep trying to push to be able to get our beer into more places.
Yeah, for people that don't quite understand why you can't get your beers into more pubs, what's the reason behind it?
Yeah, it's a combination. So some of the pubs are owned by big breweries like Heineken. They own a bunch of pubs, and they will tie those lines up with their own products or with products that they buy in at prices that we really can't supply at, to be honest. Some of them are kind of managed houses owned by pubcos, which we can potentially access through things like Super Beer Flex, but again, the pricing is a challenge for us being too small. Or just, general people, some of the big breweries just tying those lines up with offers that are too good to refuse. If you're running a pub and a global brewer offers to come in and fit your cellar out for free.
Exactly.
And ties you into buying their beer. We can't compete with that.
Of course. Yeah, that's the big challenges, but that independent breweries face, because they can't, obviously, like you said, you can't afford to, kit their cellar out, give them all this high-tech industry equipment. And it's a real challenge. It's such a shame that, these bigger breweries are not allowing independent breweries to have their beers in their pubs and stuff, because it would help the scene out a lot rather than just focusing on them big corporate companies' beers like Heineken, for instance. So what do you think independent breweries can do to better connect with people might not know much about independent beer and independent breweries like yourself?
I think independent breweries are pretty well placed. We're generally part of our local community, so we can educate in different ways, particularly around introducing people to different beer styles and things like that. Making sure that that's accessible at the brewery. That if you walk in and you've never tried beer before, there's someone at the bar that can talk to you about how we make our beer, what we do, why it's different to your macro lager, and what you might like or not like about that. Everyone has different palates. Trying to find a beer that they like. There's a beer for everybody. We can also educate around, as we touched on just then, the complexities around the beer market. That Camden Hells is not an independent beer. The Seaber Indie Beer campaign has been doing a good job of pushing that agenda, so that people realise do they know it's a local beer? When they walk into a pub, they can make an informed choice about buying an independent beer over a global brand.
Yeah, I mean, it all kickstarted with Brewdog, didn't it, really? With them being bought out by Heineken and people still thinking they're an independent craft brewery. Beavertown is another example as well. It's very foggy in terms of people thinking, is this an independent brewery? Is this a mainstream brewery?
No, and they why would they tell you? You know, it's like
exactly. I mean, why
it's
would
in their
they?
interest to market that as being from North London.
Yeah, I mean, we're a big supporter of the Sibber movement with the Indie Beer UK, and we only supply UK independent brewery beers, and we will continue to do so. A lot of beer festivals coming up this year. Again, a massive thing to showcase small UK independent breweries. What one are you looking forward to this year?
Yeah, a couple that I'm really looking forward to. The Indie Beer Feast in Sheffield in March, which we've not been to we bought it about 5 years ago, I think. It's run by my friend Jules, who owns Hop Hideout in Sheffield. So we're heading up there next month. That's really exciting. But also in Reading, near home, there's a festival called Craft Theory that used to be, and it finished. It did run last year, but it's been brought back under a different guise called Stagecraft. So it runs in a little independent theatre called South Street Arts Centre in Reading, and they've invited some really fantastic craft breweries from around the UK, as well as some local guys as well. So yeah, that's been a really good festival in Reading. To look out for that one.
Yeah, it's always good for people to get down to their local festivals and experiment and try new breweries that they might not have heard of.
Yeah,
not
indeed.
from the local area, but from across the UK. Over the next few years, where do you see the craft beer industry going, indie beer industry? Where do you see it going in the next few years? What do you think is going to be the next trend, next beer trend?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first part first, I guess it's going to be tough. You know, we've seen breweries closing every week. Just yesterday by the Horns.
Yeah, I see that yesterday.
And Alex is, I mean, did a fantastic job building that brand, and one of the early craft brewers in London around 2012, 13, they started, and to see them kind of have to call it a day is really sad, and that's just is still a layover still of COVID debt. There's really challenging market conditions. There's super cheap beer being sold in London by the globals and some bigger independents as well, if we're honest, that make it really, really difficult for a small brewery like By the Horns to do well. And sadly, they've gone. I think it's going to see even more close this year because the market is very, very tough to navigate, particularly if you've got debt you need to service and higher costs through. If your rent's being whacked up as they experienced,
business
it's going to be tough. So I think it's going to be, but I'll try and be positive. I think there's still a lot of opportunity ahead of us. You know, the government of looking at market access as it was announced in the budget, which is great. So hopefully something will come of that. And there's opportunity ahead of us to really, keep working with our local communities and differentiate more from what the bigger breweries do. And we're focusing this year very much on doing more work locally, working with a couple of local charities and ventures local that help kind of ingrain us in our community and support the people that support us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are a lot of brewery closures, but there's also quite a lot of breweries opening. Lots of new breweries popping up here, there, and everywhere, and it's great to see people still interested in opening breweries.
Yeah, I think we mentioned Bearwood at the start, and they're popping up, and the modern craft brewery is quite different, maybe to when the likes of By the Horn started even 10 years ago. These days, you want to be very taproom focused if you can and have a nice venue that people want to come to.
It's an extra income, isn't it? Yeah, it's an extra income brewery. If you don't really have a tap room, it's very hard to pay the bills.
It can be, yeah.
The
and also the market is very competitive. You want to sell beer to pubs, that's competitive markets. You need that foundation of a business, which is direct sales if you can get them, and that community that's going to walk in the door every Friday and buy a couple of pints. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, great. Right, so brilliant to hear about your book. You want to tell people about where they can purchase your book?
Yeah, the book, best place to buy is the Camera website. So
Camera website.
From there, we don't, I don't get as much royalty from a purchase on a big global book selling site.
Yeah, so we won't mention the other ones. It's the difference of commission that we pay for PayPal compared to people by card. It's like double. It's like.
Yeah, that's it.
Pay by card, people. Pay by card.
Yeah. Or you can buy it on the website, on our Elusive Brewing's website. If you want a signed copy, just put a note on your order and I can sign it for if you want. So we've got a few on our web shop.
Well, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Beers on our site, they'll be available very soon, and at the time of release, actually, they'll be available. And any advice for beer fans or aspiring brewers before we leave?
Just keep brewing good beer, keep buying good beer, and make sure you know what you're buying, and support independence. It's really important. If you want to kind of hear in the future, then you look out for your local guys.
Support your independence. And on that note, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers.